The devastating impact of COVID-19 on the property industry, the ripple effects have been enormous and will be felt for many years. It's reported that a fifth of residential rental properties in Sandton, Soweto and eThekwini are standing empty as tenants move out. The Tenant Profile Network says that though the demand is at a record low, the supply of properties is still very high. Michelle Dickens, MD of TPN Credit Bureau, is with us this morning. Thank you very much for coming in. Talk us through what you're seeing.
So what we're seeing is a shift in the market in terms of supply and demand. And the demand has deteriorated as a result of people losing income and having to move out, or move in with friends and family, and therefore there's less demand in the rental market. And that's coupled with an increase in supply in certain areas. Areas like Sandton, Randburg, where we've had a lot of growth in construction, in properties coming into the market. And certainly in the high end of the market. So Sandton would be another example of that. In the different rental brackets, you're seeing different market strengths and weaknesses. And in the above 25,000 category, that is certainly one of the areas that is challenged the most in terms of downscaling, tenants moving down back into the lower end of the market.
And obviously, I mean, that has so many different impacts, doesn't it? I mean, so for example, that's your rental property. You possibly are paying it off, so you expect a certain amount of money to come in, so that will be hard felt, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. So the impact of that is, as you have deteriorating demand, increasing supply, you have a push down on what you can charge in terms of rentals. And so we're starting to see a serious deterioration in rental increases. In Q2, that deteriorated right down to 1.6%. So that's the increase that landlords can pass on to their tenants at the moment. In Q3, that preliminary data shows that that's moved even further down, closer to the 0%. And negative escalation already in the above 12,000 Rand market. And now in Q3, the preliminary data shows that that negative escalation has pushed into the 7,000 to 12,000 Rand market. Wow. As more tenants are forced to negotiate with their landlords simply because they've lost income or they've lost part of their income. And a further deterioration is caused during the hard lockdown months when many tenants lost their income. They negotiated with their landlords. So the negotiation was around, use my deposit, I'll pay it off when we come out of the state of national disaster. Can I have a deferment like the banks did, like many credit providers did? Can I have a deferment of rent during this period and I'll catch it up in the future months? That then causes stress coming into this period now in September, October, November, as tenants are paying off their normal rent plus that catch up over the next couple of months that they were given in terms of those deferments.
I guess it's time for everyone to pay nice, isn't it? I mean, if you own a place, you have to incentivize your tenants to stay because it's probably cheaper to keep them than to look for somebody else and start that process all over again.
100%.
So what sort of sweeteners are out there?
So what we're seeing is many of the properties coming into the market at the moment, certainly in terms of institutional landlords with big portfolios of properties, and they're able to incentivize with things like first 6 months rent free. 6 weeks. Let me not overstate that. 6 weeks rent free. 0 deposits. Free Wi-Fi, uncapped free Wi-Fi for the next 6 months. Appliances. So how can we encourage you to stay with us and not end up with vacancies? Because as you stated, vacancies are high. But the second or the third problem is rent collections. And so we've seen a deterioration in tenants actually being able to meet their monthly rent commitments. Again, most predominantly felt in the high end of the market, but more seriously in the low end of the market. So tenants in the very low end, below 3,000 Rand rentals, and that has deteriorated to nearly 60%, 62%. So almost 40% of tenants there struggling to pay their rent on a monthly basis.
Where does trust come in here? I mean, what sort of negotiation should be had between both parties?
So tenants that had a record of being in good standing with their landlords leading into the lockdown, those tenants absolutely negotiate with them. Whereas tenants who have a history of non-performance with you, those tenants you want to quickly continue with your normal legal process. Yep. Tenants then who have actually suffered a loss of income. So not tenants who are in the same position that they were in before COVID, But they can come to you and they say, as a result of COVID, I have had a loss of income temporarily. I'm back to being employed. So you don't want to negotiate with a tenant who has totally lost their income, because the tenant is in no better position to get themselves out of it. And, rent consists of 30% of your income on a monthly basis. It's very difficult to catch that up if you get yourself too far behind.
You touched on it. So people are moving out, moving in with families. Where does the Airbnb element come in here?
So when we were in hard lockdown and everyone had a restriction on movement, the market opened up for the residential market in terms of long-term letting in May, and it opened up further as we progressed towards the month of June. But the short-term rentals stayed under very severe restrictions. And as a result of that, many short-term owners put their short-term lets into the long-term market. What does that do? It drives up supply in certain areas. Lack of demand, higher supply drives down pricing in those particular areas. And that's going to be felt in your areas like your Sandton, in your Atlantic Seaboard, in your Cape Town, in your Durban areas where there's a lot of short-term letting available.
Very quickly, how long do you think this is going to go on for?
So if we were to go back to the global financial crisis, we had quite a quick recovery, but a long time to really get back to where, 80%, 85%. This is going to be longer. It's going to be a much more severe long-term. We're not even seeing a recovery at the moment. Preliminary July and August data, the recovery isn't there yet.
Okay, interesting. Michelle, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.